we're doing this meeting is more for us as a new governance team to get to know each other and to go through the handbook that we had developed multiple years ago with Babs, and we'll introduce her in a moment. Now that we have a new governing team member, welcome Leanne again. And we are going to go over the process, procedures, and every single time we do this, we learn something new. So we had, when in fact, going even before Christina and Silma joined us 2 years ago, when Wendy came on board, we had Babs come out and we did this. I don't know if you remember, Wendy, because anytime there's a new member added to the governance team, which is the 5 board members and the superintendent, we go through this process and remind ourselves and learn together as to what our protocols are, how we're going to lead the district, what our responsibilities are, what are the do's and what are the don'ts. And before we get into the meat of the session, is there any communication from employees, organizations?
No.
Okay, any public comments not on the agenda?
Yes. And I have my phone out, so I'm going to take time.
Okay.
So, sorry, Patty's not here, so. So the items not on the agenda, we have 3.
Okay.
So the first one will be Colleen DeMore.
I'll just sit here.
No, we'd like to
want me
have
up there?
Yeah,
Okay.
because just as a reminder, we are glad to have an audience, but this is, it's more of a study session, more of a, so we would like you to just come up here and listen.
Okay, I just had a couple of words, kind of a follow-up from the last meeting. And also just good morning, Happy New Year. Hope you all had a relaxing break and are back kind of ready for a fresh start. I'm hoping this will be a year that we can all kind of work together and collaborate and operate as an honest, transparent, informed board of trustees, free from conflicts of interest or any other chains that would bind you from doing your job. A year when you must be well informed, asking questions and challenging practices that don't make sense. You must gather data from multiple sources, not just rubber stamping things because that's how we do it. I just want to repeat a couple things that I requested at the last board meeting. They weren't actually suggestions, I was trying to make a request. And just respectfully ask that these are somehow added to your agenda to be discussed and voted upon. Number 1, record the board meetings and the parent copies, please. I think there's been enough said about this that I don't even think I need to elaborate too much. Privacy issues can be dealt with. Why would you not agree to record the board meetings and the parent copies? Number 2 is, I'd love to see you doing whatever it takes in order to make intelligent policy decisions. This may include, as I stated last month, you should attend and participate in any and all advisory committees at your pleasure. I emailed with the superintendent and her reply on that issue, and I'll just read a part in the interest of time. Mrs. Goodwood stated that it's a decision all 5 members will make together because one individual is not the board. The board as a whole adheres to protocols and practices that they agree to. So that was the end of the quote on that part. So therefore, it doesn't seem like there's any legal reason why you should not be allowed to have a clear and complete picture of all the committees operating within your district and the discussions that are taking place in order to be well informed. So you must all vote that the protocol embrace transparency. I'm hopeful that you'll look back on 2017 as the year this district became an organization that is an honest and respected leader in education, that doesn't just give lip service to collaboration and transparency, that this is the year you can all look back on proudly, all of us, one in which teachers and staff are treated with immeasurable respect versus what happened at West Valley and the whole glass half full analogies. This can be the year in which all decisions are made with fiscal intelligence versus, for example, extending administrative contracts when they weren't even due for renewal. And finally, I hope this will be the year where PRIs finally become a thing of the past, since you will all be forthright and forthcoming with us and not be bullied by anyone to do otherwise. I'll provide you a copy with my requests and ask that you submit my requests for an item on an agenda to be voted on. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, and thank you again for all your service.
Thank you. Yes, next is Lori Cunningham.
Try the right one. So we all know that you are the democratic elected representation of our community. But members of any parent advisory councils are the regulatory and statutory representation of each school community to you, the board. The CDE says that it's our responsibility as members to report directly to you on the issues we identify that need prioritization. They also say that we should have access to the information requested and answers to the questions we have asked to explore as a part of the LCAP process in these councils. When that is not happening, it is incumbent upon you to see that it does. Part of the DAC, PAC, and DLAC being able to accomplish a balanced look at these topics and provide thoughtful input into the development of our LCAP hinges on us receiving accurate data. In the November DAC meeting, there was a moment where I said I didn't want to have to guess at accurate information, but it wasn't on me to find it. It was on the district to provide it. We're still waiting. Therefore, we ask that the board now direct staff to provide the aggregated data of math pathway placement, including all subgroups for all middle schools, as requested at the November 9th and January 4th DAC meetings, so that we can continue our math discussion in the advisory councils as it applies to the LCAP. In DAC, there have been a significant number of questions and concerns and diverse viewpoints brought into conversation on the direction of math education in CUSD. Parents have asked many questions. What long-term data collection is taking place to ensure that CUSD students are gaining a proper foundation to be successful in higher math classes? What continuity planning is in place with the high school district to ensure continued success? What are the implications of middle school math placement for high school or on college applications processes? These are just some of the things many district parents want answers to. Parents have commented repeatedly in our advisory councils that the information available to assist families in understanding the pathways and their implications just isn't available to us in a source or at all. I should say in a user-friendly source or at all. Some want the opportunity to make an informed choice in deciding what is appropriate for their individual student, and that the current board priority of mastering algebra continues to be, for many people, ambiguous and does not reflect the needs of all of our learners. That even if it remains as our board priority, how are we even measuring it? Restructuring our communications to our families to address these issues needs to be an urgent priority for our current middle schoolers and for our future students. We need to establish a method of collecting outcome data on preparation of our students to succeed as they move on in high school. We request that the Board of Education take action to explore a task force or other mechanism to evaluate math pathways and continuity, access, accountability, and equity. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Patty sent you this one. Patty said to give you copies that we wanted attached to the minutes. Thank you.
One more. Maya, Reniki.
I'm nervous, sorry. Dear CUSD board members, I'm one of the parents that requested that the board appoint a task force for math. I have 2 kids in Homestead High. My freshman is the first class to enter Homestead High with 2 years of Common Core curriculum. Heritage friends that are on the advanced math track are struggling, mostly tutoring. About half of them didn't get the desired A this semester. Yes, BMC are passing grades, but they are the math inclined kids. If they have strong foundation, why are they struggling? We implemented Common Core 2.5 years ago. The progress and decisions that were made should be constantly monitored. This is your commitment to the students. The priority is to master Algebra 1 on the first attempt. Algebra 1 is indeed the foundation for success in high school in science, math and science. How do you measure this goal? Percentage of students that complete this before 8th grade, by 8th grade. Do you know what is their level of mastering? Every student in this course should learn and master Algebra 1 curriculum. But what unified measurement is implemented across the district to measure this? The district doesn't collect, analyze, and share information, as far as we know. Knowing how our students are doing now in high school is information that you must collect. We have to make sure that we keep at least the same level of success in high school, preferably even improve it. I urge you to have this data collected and analyzed to improve our instruction. My daughter's friends are struggling. Their parents are panicking, hiring tutors, making them quit extracurricular activities. Some would say it was their choice to go to accelerated classes. I ask you, can you say and be accountable that they were well prepared? What measure do you have to show that? Other students that might have been able to accomplish Algebra 1 in 8th grade are now facing a huge disadvantage as freshmen, with math and science options available to them for good colleges. Are you certain that you provided them with all the support and access they deserved? At DAC, I have asked to reflect on our 5 middle schools to see how many students are placed on each track, their control of the curriculum. I didn't get an answer. Other concerned parents helped me collect approximate information, but the board and advisory committee should have access to it all. Please have this measurement for equity and access shared and used appropriately. Please review the packets with information that we have collected and make the right decision to look into this. And I want to say that the information I have here is not something that was given to me as a DAC member. It's something that I've collected as a parent. It's not that I'm going outside and deciding that I want to share something that was given to me. If we could have a discussion that when we have all the information and we could bring our input to the table with that, I would have gladly done.
Thank you. We can just leave it right there. Thank you. Right there. Any others?
No.
Okay. Now, do we have any comments, public comments for items on the agenda?
Yes, we have, 3.
At this time, I would like.
Two are 5.1, which is the first item.
Oh, okay.
And one is for 5.2, which is the second item.
Okay, so let's call on the 5.1 before we get that started.
Lori Cunningham?
Again. I'd like to speak with you this morning about good governance as you embark on this review and evaluation of your work together for the coming year. I'd like to share the following thoughts and pose a question for you all to consider as you think about your options today. As I said earlier, you are our democratic representation. You are elected to be the agents of ensuring that the district is well run according to our board policies and that our goals are guided by our priorities. Simply put, you shape the will and needs of our community into the effective education of our students. The Board of Education is responsible for ensuring unity and execution of both the mission and the priorities of the district. Your very challenging job, like I understand this is a very challenging job, is to align your deliberations and decisions with the community's values and vision for the district. Of note in our mission that all of us, families, community members, and staff, join together as partners to develop creative exemplary learners. So my question is this: if your duties are to oversee the implementation of the board priorities into practice, what does it mean that almost every aspect of that implementation has been found concerning by the public over the last couple of years? By my count, you yourselves have identified, and/or the public has now asked for no less than 5 task forces. You have technology on your poster, you have enrollment, you have budget, you have parent engagement communication that was asked for at the last board meeting, and you now have math curriculum. Last year, the CEA survey revealed a deep rift in satisfaction with and support and communication between the district and teachers. The community and advisory councils have raised significant concerns in other areas of implementation of our curriculum, parent engagement, and communication, and lack of transparency into many aspects of the district functioning, including the budget. If there is a common unifying theme here, it's the lack of transparent communication and stakeholder voice being included as a part of the team. So what can you do about it? My suggestion is to build on the outreach you've already started, which is great, on the school coffee meetings. In some local districts, members hold monthly office hours or community forums. In others, like Fremont Union, each member has 1 or more advisory or community committees that they attend or even chair. Basically, I'm encouraging you to take a more active role in engaging with stakeholders yourselves. As I see it, the only way you can limit relying so heavily on a single source, the district, is to communicate the will, concerns, and priorities of stakeholders, and communicate the will, concerns, and priorities of the stakeholders in your decisions and deliberations is to listen to them directly. In conclusion, I strongly believe that it's essential that a diverse range of community voices should be driving and informing your decisions as a board. I'd encourage you to get out there and listen to them in the advisory councils, cadres, union and committee meetings firsthand. Go to where they are and make them a part of the conversation by hearing for yourselves what they have to contribute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, a 1151, and that's Randy Chicago.
Yeah, you wanna share those
Yes.
copies that I brought? Okay, so I was actually originally gonna be up here being obnoxious, but I got this book for Christmas and I was reading it. And you know, sometimes you never know what you're gonna find. But I found something that was, you know, that I made copies of, that I thought was pretty interesting. And so the main, you know, the main two things in this, you know, about half a page or so, are that changes create winners and losers, okay? And the losers care more and fight harder than the winners, okay? And they have longer memories too. And bullying and arguing don't really work real well when you try and convince losers of change, okay, or you know, sell losers on change. And so this guy believes that it's, or somebody in this book believes that it's better to identify the reasons for resistance and address those than it is to bully or argue when you really don't know what people are upset about. Okay, and there's an analogy with a plank that has springs on each side that I thought was a really good one. Okay, so if you want to move the plank, okay, you can increase the force on one side, okay, and you know, to deform the plank, or you can reduce the force on the other side. You know, two ways to move a plank that you know has forces acting on both sides. So, you know, this person believes that reducing the force on one side is obviously better because it reduces overall tension. So what I want to say is that over the past few years, the district really has been, you know, increasing tension. You know, and this is kind of a higher level abstract kind of a thing, but really the district has been increasing tension in the district by not listening and trying to bully, you know, things. And so, I mean, and the latest thing is this budget advisory committee. You know, it is closed, and you know, it's closed to the public. And this is really a bad, this is a really stupid thing actually, because it delays the time that the district can figure out, you know, what you know, the concerns and issues are with the public, because you're you know, the people on that committee are not the entire public. So the district believes that by waiting until the last minute and springing things, it'll have an easier time selling these things, but it really won't, because
I would like to interrupt because we are not talking about the district advisory committee right now.
No, we're talking. No, we're talking about the governance in that thing. Okay.
So, and the your time is also up, so if you could please wrap it up.
Okay. You know, there's a decay rate for goodwill and for ill will, and I believe that, you know, the district is kind of in a state where things have been flooding, okay, and they aren't gonna, you aren't gonna return to normal. Ask yourself what the difference is between the Fremont Union's situation and the CUSD situation, and I think the difference is the Fremont Union does a better job of listening, and that's why they don't have people upset and attending these, you know, morning meetings. I mean, it's just, it's purely
Thank you, Randy.
what's been happening over the last few years that's bringing this on, and not, you gotta look past individual cases. You have to look at what's been going on.
And please be, I think we understood your points. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone who's come here for our daytime meeting, but we have to find time where we can spend, you know, 5 to 6 hours together to learn together, and we can't start a meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening to do that. So, thank you again, and with that, I would like to ask if we would want to have the 5-2, if you would like to speak now, or you want to wait when we get to 5-2.
Oh, I wanna wait.
Sure, it's your option. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Babs. She is going to lead us in the discussion, this morning. Yes,
Yeah.
but it is not for something
You can
that's,
take one, yeah.
for right now.
Thank you, Angeline. And let me tell you what's in our board packet, but even before I begin, I want to thank you for continuing to invite me to be a part of this district. I think, and I'm looking at Phyllis, I think it's been 15 years since.
Yeah.
You know, that I worked for California school boards, and really when I first began working for California school boards, one of my first opportunities was to do a governance training with CUSD. And I continued to participate and watch as new superintendents joined the team and also as new trustees joined the team. And was looking back on the last 2 meetings of the last year as we began to integrate Tristan and Soma, and just really appreciate the fact that I think what I've seen in the many, many years that I've worked doing governance training, probably over 350 districts I've worked with, when districts take this kind of time, it really makes a difference. To just spend time getting to know one another and also to reviewing your governance practices that have been established. In the course of the time that I worked with CSBA, we first started doing governance training with individual districts. I know you've attended the annual conference where they invite districts from all over the state. And we just sent back summary notes from each one of the workshops and found that oftentimes agreements, discussions needed to be repeated because they were maybe in summary notes, but they really hadn't spent time documenting it. So probably maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we started really recommending developing a governance handbook. Because what the governance handbook does is it helps you to develop protocols of practice that are based really on your bylaws and based on effective governance practices, but they're the ones that really support the work that you do here as a governance team. So we have that, and we have that to work on, which is going to be really valuable. Before I go into today's session, though, I really wanted to give your superintendent an opportunity to provide us with some introductory remarks, and then I'll talk about what's in the packet.
So, and I do remember when I first came, Babs did the session, and she said, "Oh, Wendy, you want to say something?" So the first thing I want to do is thank Babs, because she has been helpful over the last, been here almost 5 years, and she's been outstanding in her work with all of us, the governance team, and so I really want to appreciate you taking time to be here with us. The other is, I've said this before, but this board, CUSD's school board, has had a legacy of being, well, I have to say the best board in the county, and throughout the state, one of the best. I can't speak for the entire state. And that's due to the commitment here of board members to give this kind of time and to do this kind of work and to come together and really actually work and be a team. There are a lot of school boards out there and superintendents I know who struggle because board members don't want to invest this kind of time in learning and creating coherence amongst the board through practices and protocols. So I want to appreciate all of you for doing that. 4 of you for over the years doing that a lot, and for Leanne for coming in and giving this kind of time. The other thing I want to do is to kind of set us on that positive note moving forward through this, and I'll be able to share more in February. But as you know, we did do the survey, the parent and staff survey this year, and our survey is very different than the teacher survey, which was actually not regulated well. So I want to make sure that was clear. we actually contract with Hanover, which is a research firm. You all know, you've seen our surveys, the packets, and you have the most recent one. And they actually hold the data, they lock it, parents can answer once per school. And they actually hold the data, they do the summarization and the findings for us as a research firm. And we just completed it, we locked the parent survey, we locked the staff survey. We had good return on both. And one of the things I asked them to do, we won't get the summary results for about another probably 3 or 4 weeks, because it takes them a great deal of time to go through and create those charts and especially summarize comment. But one thing I did ask them to do is pull out an item for me. And this year we did something different. Because of those questions, some of which we just heard about, how are people feeling about our district, where there's been a lot of discord and anger and discontent, and there was no faith in the district. So we asked parents to rate their school and to rate the district on levels of dissatisfaction. So we had them pull just that item out and give us the data. And as you know, if you were in the country, if you ask how are public schools doing, generally they just put a report out that California's a C-, but that was by a technical review. But generally, communities say somewhere in the low C's to D's as a country in public education. But if you ask that same parent how their school's doing, they would say it's an A. So it's always the school's an A and the public education's a D, which kind of doesn't make sense because every school can't be an A if the whole system's a D. But besides that, we knew what would happen. We knew that schools would be ranked a little higher as far as, or lower as far as their levels of dissatisfaction, and the district slightly higher. And it was, I guess, a little risky if you want to say that because of all of the things that we much of what we just keep hearing. But what was interesting is we came out with the dissatisfaction rate for our school district at 15%. That's 85% of our parents did not mark being dissatisfied with 15. Now, to me that was exciting. Does it mean we wanted to stay at 15? No, we don't. We want that to be a little bit lower. But that was 2 categories, completely dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied, but 85% did not mark those 2. And I think that was a testament to the work that we've been doing. And we have had a lot of hard work, and we've taken on a lot as a school district due to Common Core and the shifts that we've had, no different than other districts. But to say that at the end of that big hill we just climbed, and we're going to flatten it out and keep going, at the end of all of that change and frustration, to have it be that 15% actually felt really good, and I think Michelle felt really good about that. So that's a positive note.
So it's fair to say that only 15% of the participants of the survey were dissatisfied with the district.
Yes, that's how it came out. So we had 2 categories: completely dissatisfied, somewhat. Completely was 5%, or approximate, so it was like 5 point something, and it was approximately 10% were somewhat dissatisfied. So we had a 5% factor. People would say, hey, there's something wrong with you. And the 10 somewhat, and then the rest were on the positive side.
Wendy, you may not have this information at your fingertips, but at some point I'd like to know what percentage of respondents we had to that survey.
We had just over 4,600 families respond.
And one survey per family, per school. So if they had a child at an elementary and a middle, they could do 2.
Yes, they were allowed to do that, yes. And I think last year they had a problem with that, so we actually added that, their ability to do that. So if a parent, for example, had a child at Eaton and Lawson, they could take it as an Eaton parent and a Lawson parent. And then we do have the data, we will have the data disaggregated by school response as well. So that will be coming. But we have, we'll address that in a board meeting in February. We'll be able to present the findings from that. Right now, I couldn't tell you precisely. We have about 18,600 students, and of course, there's multiple children, so we know it's well below that. I would say it's probably in the 13,000, 14,000 range, but we can check that out.
Right, thank you. It's a nice way to start.
Yeah, that felt good.
So let me tell you what I've prepared for you in your folder, just so that you have it, and then I want to talk about the process for the day. there is a discussion guide, and the discussion guide is your opening page. It has specific times on it, and they're really, I want to say, they're very flexible. And the reason that they're flexible is because I use that as just something for myself as I'm facilitating this meeting. What's really important to me in this meeting is that we have two goals, and one of them is to get to know one another a little bit better. Again, Yang and welcoming you to the team and saying, you know, this is a new team, so it's new people, being able to figure out a little bit more about one another and how to work together. The second goal is to use the governance handbook, and you have a copy of that as well. And we'll use that throughout the day, but specifically after lunch, we're going to be focused on looking at the protocols. I know we're going to probably touch on them throughout our discussion this morning, but we'll look specifically at each one and say, is this the protocol that supports your good practices, or is there something we want to change? The handbook and everything about today, by the way, there's no action item on today. This is in advance. And so any changes that are made to the governance handbook will be brought back to the board meeting, to a future board meeting probably in February, where you'll look at it and approve it. And in the handbook, there's also a signature page where you can agree that you've had an opportunity to look at this and that you've agreed to it. So those are our two purposes. So we're going to have some flexibility in terms of how we move through today. There's a couple of exercises that I want to do that are listed in
Can I just stop
yeah.
for a second? I think Leanne had some question.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Nan.
sorry. So this is my second board meeting. So I think this page and these materials were not in the board agenda packet. So our parents are not accessible.
That's
So I think
right.
in terms of board app, they
It's all-
should be available.
They are available.
So, okay, so they all have a copy.
Yes, they're available.
Yeah, just
Okay.
wondering
Okay.
if they don't know what we are talking about.
Good. And so, Leanne,
So
what
will
you
this be put online for the parents who are not here later?
In the past, we hadn't had a practice to do that, because when we do a board advance, we cover so much material, because this is our learning session.
Not only board events, and in any board meeting, if we have material that's available.
That's always as
only
on,
at,
yes,
only at the
yes.
board meetings.
So
To
let me
scan them to make them available.
So what
after.
our practice is, if we have the materials available at the time the agenda is produced, now, all materials are online. If we don't have the materials at the time that the agenda is produced, which often happens, especially things like PowerPoints, presentations that are being adjusted, we don't. However, if a parent requests something from that item and says, I want backup copies that were, I wasn't at the board meeting, I want a backup copy, we give it to them. If it's an agenda item and the PowerPoint came after the meeting, after the posting of the agenda where we couldn't get it online, there's always copies on this table for parents, which are there.
For the parents who are not here, they don't even know what material to request because there is no recording of the meeting.
What they would request is
they
They
do.
will.
Like last year, last meeting, there was a report that was used, I think by Leslie, that was uploaded after the meeting.
Yeah, so we upload this after the meeting.
Well,
for
we
the parents
haven't
who
been
are
uploading
not
everything
here.
after the meeting because
So
of.
shouldn't we?
I think that's part of the discussion. So let's just get the morning going, and then we can talk about what we think what as a board we think we need to be uploading and what we don't, and what the practice has been. So let's just let Babs lead the meeting, and then we can move from there.
So one of the things that you'll see on the discussion guide that's important is a parking lot. And the reason for the parking lot is twofold. One is again to do exactly what Anjali just said. If we have a topic that we want to spend some time on that isn't listed here, we'll put it up there. And then secondly, as you look through the discussion guide, after lunch, we're going to spend time on the governance handbook, specifically looking at each one of the protocols that are listed. And then at 2 o'clock, our legal counsel will join us, and that may be an opportunity. We may see some questions that we'd like to have Greg address for us as well. So in terms of parking lot, this topic is
What to upload.
what to upload. Okay, good. So in this packet, again, you have a copy of the governance handbook that I believe was handed to you separately, is that right, Mindy?
Yes.
Okay,
It's
okay.
the bound, the little
Yes.
binding on
Okay,
it.
good. And then on the right side of the pocket, there are some tools that we've used in past sessions that I really rely on in developing a governance handbook. And I just want to identify those, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about them. And one is a document from Board Source, and it's 12 principles that power highly effective boards. And it's something that we've used in the past, and also the governance handbook is built on some of the principles that are listed here. So we'll spend some time talking about that. And in addition, during the time that I worked at California School Boards, I was able to participate in the development of this training program, and so I pulled some tools that I think are particularly useful. And below that, it follows, there's a Venn diagram that talks about understanding roles and some specific information about roles and responsibilities that we will talk about. And then finally, one of the documents that we developed, and there's a protocol in the handbook about this, is that this board self-assesses their work on an annual basis. And so I've included in here the tools that we use for doing that. So I just want you to know again what's in here so that you know what we'll be leaning on and referring to. Again, don't hold to the times. My job is to get us to the end here in the sense that we want to make sure we have time to review the handbook and also hopefully to get to know one another a little bit. So with that in mind, any questions, by the way, in terms of the day?
So is he allowed to record all of this?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as and it's not disruptive and he's not being disruptive, so.
I thought she was the
Well, here's the good news, so I'm about to move you around.
Okay.
You look great, Selma.
All right.
Good thing I brushed my hair today.
So here's the exercise that I'd like to do. I'd like to have you team up. And your team, you're going to ask 3 questions of your teammate. And then your teammate is going to ask you those 3 questions. And then you're going to introduce your teammate to this team. Okay, so my teams are, Leanne, you're going to work with Phyllis, so you're perfectly situated. Kristen, you're going to work with Wendy, so I'm going to suggest you sit over there. Sorry, sorry. I didn't help you on this one.
So what I need to bring?
You need to bring just maybe a piece of paper to jot down a few notes.
Just like for 5 minutes, that's all.
Right.
And then 2 of them.
Yes, and the 2 of you. Okay. Okay, and here are the questions, and again, this is, one of the tools that I think is really important is, again, an opportunity to reflect and to talk to one another. And so I'll tell you the 3 questions, and then I can tell them again if you can't remember as you move down. So the first one is why are you here? So why are you on this board? Or Wendy, why are you here in this district? So what were the compelling reasons why you came to this district? The second question is, I want you to share an important moment or a figure in your own educational background that really had a profound impact on you. So was there a teacher, was there a subject, was there a moment that really made a difference in terms of your own development? And then finally, I want you to tell everybody what your first job was. And I'm going to give you each about 5 minutes to decide who's going to start. And you have a chance to interview your teammate, and then we're going to switch, and then I'm going to have you introduce your teammate to all of us. Okay? And if you forget the questions, ask me again.
There we go.
Yeah.
So you want me to go first, or do you want to go first? Okay, so why are you here?
I wanted to say that yesterday, I want to say that the gospel, I want to say that, yeah, I want to say that the gospel overrates talk. And even with like the solutions and some of the school research,
Turns out I probably
take the extended vacation.
try to, I just turns out I couldn't optimize it.
job, your very first job. You get
Yeah.
so
The
access.
next question is, most important player in your job?
But no.
What's the biggest difference in your job?
Well, so as I said, I like
Yeah, the second question is really talk about a time in your own education where personally your subject really impacted you.
Thank you, Abby.
Where's your first job? That's like.
Yeah, it is.
That's what drew me to the lies.
So when your kids aren't there, you live in your eyes, just kind of last one.
They even have beds set out.
Right, but at the same time,
And so what kind of work did you do in that government job? Was it technology? Oh, it was, but it was, so that was your first job after college?
Your first job.
Yeah.
They got this graduate, he did everything done.
Your job Okay, now we gotta go back to your important role.
So what was your first job?
All right, I was in my staff for a long, long time, years, most of my career. And I always thought about those 40 years that I was here, that when I retired, I would like to do something. I just wanted to sort of have that day. Passionate about kids, very passionate about the district. And so when I retired, I was pretty happy with the board at that time. So I didn't want to invest in the government because I thought they were doing a good job. But then one of the board members, George Tyson, moved out of the area, so he was no longer. So in 2006, he did not run for the election in 2007. So, and I had an opportunity to say, I did.
So my first job where I actually got
So the next question is the important moment of figuring my background. So, you're the person that didn't convince me was
Yeah, you're
beyond my parents, my parents.
So what I did is
But beyond that, I had a sixth grade teacher. She did her hair, long braids, she and she put her hand in it, she never carried it, she just put her fingers in it. But she was, she was such a sweet.
So you don't hear from the state banks and
I actually, when I went to college, she actually started to be a teacher, even though she had a
first job takes money. But all your stuff is there.
science and I thought that's what.
So, no, I see that there.
And it was good to say.
Okay, let's see.
And then my first job, my very first job when I was so fascinated, was actually a very good typist. And my dad had a friend, she was the Secretary of Service, and she worked by herself, and she just took him and included, she needed secretary work done, because he didn't have enough to actually have her secretary. So she hired me to be a typist for her. So that was my first job, I was 16.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, so it was good, but we didn't take a nap.
How's everybody doing? Need any more time? Just a little. Okay.
So this, what's your battery situation?
Yes.
So, okay, so set up and then find a good spot.
Yes, I was asking for that, but she didn't.
No, we're not following her schedule already. I'm sure we'll catch her. She's good at catching us up.
Okay, are we ready? All right, and we just wanted to check in on cell phones. I think just needing to use cell phones if there's something that you have to use it for.
Which was the most recently, was there any changes?
We can all just turn off our ringers and, we can take breaks and stuff if we need to check our ringers off.
Okay, and speaking of breaks, I didn't schedule breaks specifically, but I think we should look at maybe sort of mid-morning, we'll take a break, and then we're gonna have lunch. Likely it's gonna be working lunch.
Yeah.
Kristen just voiced something, and I think one of the things that I often grapple with is not putting any times on the agenda at all, because there are some people who like to make sure that we're on track, and Kristen, I know would be for the numbers person, so ignore the numbers, because we'll get there. So, what team is going to introduce their partners? Who wants to start?
I am.
Okay, good. So,
I'm going to introduce our newest board member, Leanne. And she's here because she, as a parent in the district, other parents began to talk to her and share with her concerns and things that they were interested in about the district. And she was pretty good at summarizing those things and sharing them with the district. And she found that she wasn't always getting the information that she wanted. And so her goal is to learn how the district works and to help parents understand how the district works. So she is trying to be helpful. The important moment in her life is coming to the United States. And she said when she was and I told her I didn't believe this, but she says it's true, that she was so shocked when she was in Taiwan that she wouldn't speak in class or anything. And even going to college and all there's not a need to speak. You do your work, you turn in your work, you do whatever you do, and you do well, and you don't have to talk. And so she had an experience where she was asked to explain a problem that she had gotten correct, and no one else in the class had gotten it correct. She put her heart really out of her chest because she was going to have to get up and explain this because it isn't something they do there. Do you agree? No. Okay. So she said the United States environment opened her up, and now she is able to speak more freely and more comfortably, but she's still shy on a personal level. And another interesting thing about her is she said it's easier for her to share in English than it is to share in Chinese. So, and her first job was a government job, an engineering job with the government in Taiwan, just before she came to the U.S. And she got to take a nap after lunch.
That's true.
And some of them even have a camping bed. In the office, they lie down for that nap.
okay, thank you, Phyllis. So, Leanne, would you introduce Phyllis to us?
So, Phyllis has been in with the district. She wants to be here because she's passionate about kids and passionate about education. She has always wanted to be on the board. But initially there was an open seat, and then she was happy with districts. But there was a chance that a seat opened up, and then she got on board and has been really happy ever since. and her most important moment is a sixth grade teacher who she just has she made a big impact on her life, and that might be one of the reasons she has become the teacher. But teacher is not her first job. Her first job was being a typist. When she was 16-year-old, she was helping out someone who was taking a lot of typist jobs. But after that, she initially was going to be a physical therapist. But that turns out she thinks there's too much science she has to study. And then she decided to become a teacher, but loved the job ever since.
Thank you. All right, Kristen.
Okay, I'm going to introduce Wendy. So why Wendy's in CUSD is because first, the school district reputation kind of attract her to come here. And but the main reason like why she stayed here is because she talked to the school board and she felt the board is awesome. They have strong and solid board and made her focus on instruction. And the second one is the important figure to change her life as a neighbor who is a teacher and brought her the first book and introduced like the habit reading book. And the first job for Wendy is in Great America, the carnival in person to introduce again people again to go again. Okay.
That's great, thank you.
So Kristen, why she's here? So she's a mom. Obviously, we know she's a mom, and that she feels she's benefited from public education. So her children are in public education. She's benefited from public education, and she wants to give back to that and create a legacy. Her moment, she said, goes back to high school. She said she went to an all-girls school, and that made a big difference for her because not having males in the school, there was no differentiation between what one person can do and another could or couldn't. So the idea was that everyone there had that feeling that you could do anything, and that there was no reason why you couldn't because there was no other. And then her first job, she said she was very young, but she's had a job where she helped her mother. They kind of created, like we called it production line. They were creating kits or boxes for something that were being created, so she would be the gluer and glue things.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, someone Anjali.
Okay, so I'll introduce Anjali. So Anjali has 3 kids, as we know, and she was volunteering a lot when they were young, and then when they were in middle school at Miller, the Miller principal, whose name is Mr. Taylor, the principal at the time, he encouraged her to, because she had done so much work at the local level, to run her school board so that she could make that impact at the district level instead of just at her local school. Something that impacted her life is actually very similar to Liang is coming to this country. She came here for her undergraduate education, and she had studied in Africa and India prior to coming here. And so the experience of going to school here was very different, and especially when her kids went through CUSD, it really opened her eyes to all the opportunities that are available to students in this country. And then her first job was at her college library at her undergraduate school, and she was shelving books.
Soma and I have a very similar start in terms of why we are on the board. Soma also has 2 kids, and she was very active, with our parcel taxes on the school side, and also with Project Cornerstone, and that's what got her, once the time came and it was opening on the board, a lot of encouragement from her fellow friends and parents to join the board. So that's how she came to the board. The impact, the most important figure for her is her mom, who initially was a stay-home mom, even though she had a master's degree in chemistry. When she first came to America, she was a stay-home mom, but at age 50, I'm really impressed.
I know.
She went back to school and she got her CPA and an MBA, and then started working and worked as the manager in some firm. And so that, I think, is incredible. I'll be impressed. Yeah, I'll be inspired by that too, that you can learn at any age. And her first job was in a dentist office to basically clean up after they all left. And so she never became a dentist after that was like instead, she went to consulting as her real first job after engineering college, so after MIT. That's
Thank
all
you.
of us.
Thank you. That was great. It's always full of surprises. So we can learn a little bit about.
I didn't know all these years that Phyllis wanted to do physical therapy, because that was one of my passions too.
Yeah, but the first chemistry class, I thought, none of this for me.
So culture. Culture is oftentimes difficult to describe because it's kind of how it feels. And you know, how people do business. And I know in many groups that I've joined, you know, I first start out by kind of trying to look around and say, oh, that's how we do business. So it's really helpful to be able to articulate what that is. So what I'm going to do, I know in your handbook you have simple rules, which I'll read to you, but I'm also going to hand out some rules of engagement that over the years I've learned have been useful, and I'm going to hand you a highlighter. And what I want you to do is I just want you to highlight a couple of them that you think are important for us, and then we're going to talk about that. And I'll capture them up here, and they'll be, again, this is for this meeting, right? So I'm going to hand these out. While I do, I'm going to read these, and then in the National Geographic Kids Discover magazine, they have some rules of engagement from George Washington. And I thought, as we look at this, I might use a few of them because you would find them pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm going to hand through this way, and hopefully these highlighters work. I grabbed them out of a bin in my office, and 3 more. So simple rules, and Anjali, maybe you or Wendy can remind us the simple rules that came up were, again, they were norms that were really developed in part of our development of the government handbook.
Yeah, so when we had first started on this mission, I think we did 2012. And that
Was
Phyllis,
when?
It was 2012,
right,
2012 was the first handbook.
That, and at that point, we said we should have some easy rules to follow, that's why.
Right.
And we were, we all as a team came up with the rules that we felt we could all adhere to, and so it's a good thing that we kind of look at it and see if we can. And in fact, we were so passionate about it, when this boardroom came live, they were kind of put on the wall to remind us all the time as to what we feel are the simple rules to live by as a board. So,
Not only was it,
Yes.
can I interrupt?
No.
Not only as a board, but as a district.
Yes.
Lots of our folks have been trained and have agreed that the simple rules are the way we should all.
Okay, really important. And so, will somebody volunteer to read these simple rules before we start in on this exercise?
sure. Teach and learn in every interaction. See, understand, influence patterns in the whole, the part, and the greater whole. Search for the true and useful. Engage in joyful practice. Act with courage. Recognize and build on assets of self and others.
Really important. There's several things I think that are really important to highlight here. One is to have a list of simple rules that isn't very long. Right? Because one of the things that happens, I think, is that people will make a long list of things that they are agreeing to and yet never look at them again. So having them up, having them visible, and looking at them periodically, and just having them be part of how it is you operate is really important. So again, the rules of engagement came from many, many sources, and I don't expect that we'll have all of them listed there. But before you look at them, let me read you what George Washington said rules of engagement. But they were called rules of civility. Every action done in company ought to be with some sign of respect to those that are present. In the presence of others, sing not to yourself with a humming noise or drum with your fingers or feet. Cleanse not your teeth with the tablecloth. Kill no vermin in the sight of others.
Those were all the rules.
These were the rules of civility
word?
during George Washington's time.
Interesting.
So, pardon me?
What's the word?
A vermin? A vermin is like a mouse or a rat or
okay.
insect of some sort.
Something disgusting.
My pet.
Exactly. My pet too, so.
Some people's pets are vermin, yeah.
So I just think, you know, I mean, what's interesting to me is that this has always been so, getting clarity about how it is that you work together. Rules of civility, rules of engagement, people call them norms, people call them simple rules. So for today's work together, I want you to highlight, if you only highlight one, it's fine, but highlight for us what you think on this list is really important. And I'll capture it.
Okay. You wanna switch now?